Hello and welcome to Leaders Up Close and Personal. This is part of the UCF's Engineering Leadership and Innovation Institute. We appreciate Duke Energy supporting this effort. Today we have Gene Frantz, who is a professor in practice from Rice University and spent many years at Texas Instruments.
That's right.
And he is also a proud alumni of UCF.
Yes.
So thank you for coming and joining and sharing your story today.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
It's great. And I've heard you talk before, and you've got principles for innovation and for engineers to innovate, and one of them is to think globally. What does that mean for an engineer to think globally?
It's easy to fall into the category of everything that needs to be done, all the innovations are things I need around me or my community needs, and you find out very quickly as you spread from me to my family, to my community, to my state, to my country, things change. And so you may lose great innovations because all you're seeing and focusing on is just around me. The example I use is digital cell phones started in Europe. And the reason for that is Europe had this huge problem. They had, just like we did, analog cell phones, but each country had their own definition, and so when you cross country lines, which if you've been to Europe, you find out happens very often, your cell phone wouldn't work. Well, in the United States, all of Canada, and all of Mexico had the same standard. We didn't have a problem.
Right.
And so our position was, why would we want to do digital cell phones to give me more lines? We have plenty of lines now, and what is this problem of standardization? And we just couldn't see it.
So innovation, we've got to be able to see the world from a different perspective.
Or from many perspectives.
Many perspectives.
Yeah, just not ours. If you remember when I've talked about it, I kind of bring in this point of view of diversity. And this is part of that diversity of other people in other countries have a different set of issues than we do. And as I create innovation, or as I become innovative, I may find that what I'm wanting to do better fits first in Asia or Europe or somewhere else before it comes to the U.S.
Okay, and so if we're going to be innovative, we're going to have many different people, cultures, perspectives on that team. So as an engineer, how do I go get that experience?
What I did is travel around the world and meet those people. And so I made it my business, if I was going to look for the people who are changing the world, I call them the crazies of the world, they're going to either be at a university, a professor or a Ph.D. student, or a small company that was started around that university by a Ph.D. student or a professor. And I'm looking for all of their different perspectives, trying to find out what are you looking at that's different than I would be looking at.
Okay.
And so that's how I find them. Then there's a second step that you're almost begging the question. As I find that new idea, how do I find people who I can pull together to make it happen?
Right.
And that's the task of salesmanship to some extent. And the concept is, I come to you and say, Tim, I have this really neat idea. And if I don't see your eyes light up and say, wow, that's neat, well, you're not the person.
Okay.
And so I'm looking for that set of people who say, wow, that's fun, I would love to do that, can I come play with you?
Right, so now you find me, my eyes light up. Are you having me sign a contract?
Oh, no.
Why not?
Contracts aren't any good. You can get out of it. I may be in trouble saying that. Of course, there's no legal staff here, so I don't have to worry about that.
So we're good, we're covered.
Oh, yeah, we're covered on that. But I need a handshake. I need trust. I need for you and I to agree that we're going to go work on this. And if it comes to a point where one of us thinks it's not the right thing to do, we'll have a good conversation. We'll leave as friends, just as we came as friends, and we'll be looking for somebody else.
And that's worked for you?
Yes.
And people are comfortable, and the folks in the legal department?
You know, they're not happy with that at all.
No.
No. A product I did many years ago with a company called Worlds of Wonder, and they went out of business for strange reasons, but we did a doll, a talking and listening doll. And I was sitting there with him just like we're sitting here, and he came to a point of saying, I really can't take you any further on this until we have an NDA. And I said, well, it's going to take several days to get the two companies to turn around with an NDA. And he said, well, I have one here that needs to be signed. I said, okay, I'll sign it. You sign it, and we'll make the NDA. Right. And I got in all sorts of trouble at TI. You're not authorized to sign an NDA. How dare you? Well, I don't care. What he and I needed was something that said, for the two of us, don't care about the companies particularly. Yeah. We will keep it to ourselves.
Right. And so that whole trust and integrity,
yes,
is core to innovation?
It is core to the results of innovation. And if you remember, I used the 5 things of knowledge, intelligence, creativity, innovation, and business. Mm-hmm. I might be without integrity here, but it will hurt me down here when we get to business. Okay. And the result needs to be business.
Right. So in your experience, if you've ever maybe broken someone's trust, you didn't think you did, but I perceive that you did break my trust. Mm-hmm. How do you fix that?
We sit down and talk about it. Yeah. We get very close on, I'm sorry I did that. Now how do we make sure I don't do it again?
Right.
And it's going to happen.
Sure.
And I think the most important thing you can do is be real and say, you know, I screwed up.
Yep.
How do we fix it now?
Good, good. As you were also talking, you heard another word, world changing.
Yes.
So does an innovation have to change the world? Do we need innovations to change the world?
No. But you think about that, and if I narrow it down, if I can change the world for one person, and that goes back to the time I spent with the research team doing artificial vision. It's not going to change the world for everybody. In fact, right after we began working with them, I invited 5 of our senior VPs from TI to come visit University of Southern California with me and the research team, just so they would get to know what was going on. And I asked the researchers, bring in one of the people who you've impacted. And I don't know if I can tell the story without choking up, because everybody on the TI side choked up, because a woman and her husband came in, and the husband was the one that said, I've known her since high school. She has gone blind. If you can't help her, if you have the ability to help her, you're obligated to do so. And through my teary eyes, I noticed everybody else had teared up. And so you have that for that one person we impacted. Mm-hmm. But for that person, we changed the world.
Right.
And so it isn't necessarily, do I change the lives of everybody in the world forever? Let me just pick one.
Yeah. And you wonder, though, so you helped her.
Yes.
Who did she go touch?
Oh, yeah. And it just rolls and rolls. And just to finish that, one of the people who begs them to, can I even think of his name now? Oh, come on. But has been blind from birth. I'll think of his name in a minute. And he keeps saying, do me, do me, do me. And they have to have somebody have seen in their life, so when they do the test of now what do you see, they can do that. And this person has been blind since birth, and so they say no. And I keep saying, he's so rich, he can handle it.
Right.
Just do it. But it is that, how can you impact people in a positive way? And I always try to make sure engineers understand we have the tools as engineers to change the world, make it a positive change.
And to change the world, we've got to think globally, and we've got to build relationships based upon trust and integrity.
That's right.
Gene, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your words of wisdom.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your time with us. This has been Leaders Up Close and Personal.